Hello and welcome to yet another fun-filled episode of My Dog Will Eat My Face. I apologize if I sound a little nasally. I'm fighting just a minor cold on top of other things today, so yay. Anyway, be that as it may, I did want to talk about something rather important today, and I'm going to be very, very honest here. Wait a minute. I don't think I've ever been dishonest. So I'm just going to be me. That's what I should just say. I'm just going to be me. There's no sense in lying to my own diary on the podcast, right? Uh, Although people do. But anyway, moving on. Unfortunately, lately, I have been struggling somewhat with fighting depression and living with depression in day to day life. Now, if anyone were to ask me, my gosh, why are you doing that? I'll just cock my head at them and say, are you an idiot? Why wouldn't I be depressed? Being told that I'm dying slowly and physically experiencing it bit by bit as organs fail one at a time. It's not necessarily a jovial event with balloons and potlucks and festivities and more balloons and all that kind of good stuff. No, it it's a real bother. And sometimes it can really weigh down heavily on a person. Just the constant uh, battle that you keep losing day in and day out for the most part. Some good days exist, sure, but you know it's a battle you're losing slowly and surely. And that's tough. What's also tough is having no goals. There's no real thing to look forward to. I don't have a dinner to look forward to. I don't have a show with friends I'm going to go see to look forward to. Travel to look forward to. A dinner to look forward to. A good dinner. Sometimes I can't get that. True, actually. So, I do pull that one off a little bit. But a lot has been robbed from me in my typical life of what I would pursue and what I would seek out to pursue things that are positive and things that are to look forward to. And that alone can prompt a strong malaise, perhaps as good old President Carter would say, and make it very difficult to get out of bed when you should be getting out of bed. So, I wanted to talk about that today. Depression, what it is, why it is, what it's not, and what I'm dealing with it, and see where that goes. I think it's fairly obvious with respect to the reasons as to why I would be depressed. Again, where have you been? I'm slowly dying bit by bit. And again, I am not looking forward to events anymore and things and that used to give me a lot of joy in life. They are just no longer an option. And that can be a bit of a drag. Put it as mildly as possible. It can be a bit of a drag and makes things difficult, especially when you are indeed also in pain or suffering or having a hard go trying to do basic things that once were things you took for granted, like walking, like stairs, or able to at least walk up and down stairs, like getting out of bed without being in pain, putting your shoes on without screeching in pain from edema in your feet. Things that you were not ever really expecting to happen, the bad things you were not expecting to happen, and you were not expecting the most simple and for not forsaken, not uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Promised, not guaranteed in life. Those things are suddenly gone. Things that you took for granted. That's what I was trying to say. Gosh, see, even your cognitive ability declines. That's a good example of it right there. I could have just said things that you have come to take for granted, but instead I mumbled a bunch of gibberish to get to that exact same point. Anyway, moving on. I'll edit that just out of the audio later. No big deal. Yeah, so moving on. The reason for me being there is pretty obvious. I don't think anyone would debate me as to why I'm depressed. But I think that's also true for everybody. I don't think I have any special privy to an emotion of any sense above and beyond that of anyone else. We're all independent, sentient beings that are experiencing this universe in our own different ways. I would have to be the most arrogant of arrogance to say someone has no right to be depressed for any reason whatsoever. I don't know where their life is coming from. Their life might look perfect from the outside, but on the inside, for very good reasons, perhaps reasons that have lasted for decades, they're slowly kind of dying on the inside. I don't know that. Only they know that. All of us ourselves are individuals that only know our experience. Others can try to empathize, but that is the limit of the best mind, the best philosopher, the best counselor, the best intelligence. The best thing that anyone else can do is try to empathize. But they will never, ever, ever be able to truly know what it's like to be you. Ergo, I don't think it's appropriate for anyone to doubt the veracity or reasons for someone's emotions. So that's one first point I want to make right away. We're all different. We all come from different clay. We all have different backgrounds, different building blocks, different upbringings, different thoughts, different experiences, different cells in our body. We have no right to tell anyone, least of which ourselves, what someone should or should not feel. And that last point is the most important. A lot of people talk to themselves endlessly, walking down the street, mumbling, and I'm doing it too now. No, I'm just kidding. People talk to themselves out of depression or try to talk to them out of depression by saying they shouldn't be depressed. They have a good life. Why are they sad? Or it's not clear to them, but it certainly may not be clear, and that's fine. But never say you shouldn't, or someone else, for that matter, shouldn't be depressed. Never should on yourself, is what I like to say. Because whatever you are feeling is precisely exactly what you should be feeling. And once you really realize that in any moment, what you are feeling is the right feeling, and you give yourself that liberty to feel, it is, well, liberating. You can suddenly let those moments, those thoughts, those negative emotions, those feelings wash over you. And only when you get to that point can any one of us ever hope to deal with our emotions, and certainly depression. So today I'm going to talk about my depression and why I think it's there. I could be wrong. I might come to some epiphanies as I discuss it, and why it's hard on me, because I've broken some of my own rule. In some cases, I unfortunately have been shooting on myself, and that is never, ever a healthy thing to do. And I just want to share that experience. Hopefully, someone somewhere might glean something from it, and more importantly, to selfish me, hopefully, I learn something from this reflection. But we'll find out in short time, won't we? So, I think I've already said why I'm depressed. I think I've said it for a few years now, but I think more precisely it's the lack of doing things that I once enjoyed. I once thoroughly enjoyed traveling. I traveled the world, for God's sakes. Is it God's sake or God's sakes? Whose sake is it? Is it multiple sakes or is multiple? I don't know. That's a weird phrase. I've never understood it. But I've traveled the world, and now I'm pretty much tethered to a tube to where I can't leave my apartment for more than maybe 30 to 40 minutes on a temporary tank. Consider that I have crossed every single major imaginary line on the planet at least twice. And now my universe is a area within a 60-foot tether. Imagine that. And what I mean by every imaginary line on the planet, I'm saying the equator, the tropics, Capricorn and Cancer, the Arctic Circle, the International Date Line, Greenwich Mean Time, all those lines on the planet that are meant to identify the Arctic, the tropics, the equator, and all that fun stuff. And the date. So I call those the imaginary lines on the planet. But of all those, there's quite a bit. There's quite a bit, maybe half a dozen. And I've crossed each of them at least twice in my life. That is a lot of travel, folks. A 13-hour flight to me is something that's kind of normal. And I've seen like both the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans, each from both sides. I've been to the California coast side in North America and looked across the ocean, the Pacific. And then I went all the way to the other side of the world, on the other side of that same vast ocean, and looked back at where I was several times. That's just one example. So I feel very secluded, very limited in what I can do, see, and experience in my life. That alone is depressing. And amongst that, I can't even do the other more simple things I used to enjoy, such as going out to eat dinner with friends. I can't eat dinner at home, but I'd like to go out and eat and have that be an experience. To me, going out to eat with friends was a 4 hour thing. It was an event. It wasn't just, you know, the Meg's over my hammy at what is that restaurant called? I can't even think of it. It's being censored by my front chordal part of the brain because it's so bad. Anyway, I'm not talking about that for a meal. I'm talking about a 4 hour event meal, right? 6 courses, $300, prefix or something. Those kinds of meals. I loved going to places like that. I was a real good, pretty hardcore foodie. And I love doing that with friends and loved ones. That's gone as well. Honestly, if I were to go down my list of favorite things in this world before I went into hospice, I think every single one has now gone away. One of them, believe it or not, was work. I actually enjoyed working and enjoyed my career. I was never one of those people of saying, "Oh my God, I can't even get out of bed to go to work in the morning." I never had that experience. I actually liked working. I got a lot out of it. Some of the funniest moments of my life happened while I was working, quote unquote. And I can think back to them to this day and just start cracking up out loud. And everyone looks at me like I'm crazy because I just suddenly start cackling in the corner. So they're probably right. I probably am crazy. But that too is gone. Everything on my list is pretty much gone. And so that makes things very, very difficult for me at this point. It takes a lot to keep my head above water, so to speak. And recently, I found myself not wanting to do things that I used to get joy out of, such as playing computer games. That I still can do. That's one of the things actually I can still do, so I'm wrong. There's the one thing I can still do. I can still play computer games. So that's good. But I found myself not wanting to play it. I found myself not wanting to get out of bed. And a few other behaviors, and I was talking to a friend of mine about these behaviors, I guess. And he just said point blank, "Dude, that's depression." And only when he said that did I realize he's right. I didn't even think I was depressed. I thought I was tired. I thought I was just over this particular game. I thought I was, yeah, any number of things. But for some reason that did not occur to me. But taking a step back and looking at it again from his perspective or an external perspective, it's true. It is all the signs of depression. So there you have it. I've been depressed. And I think for the most part know why I've been depressed. I know well, I don't know. I would not be surprised if there are some other things that are causing the depression, but I think I know the bulk of it. but I also think I'm missing some things because they're just not as apparent to me right now. I'm giving myself room to fail, to not give a complete picture, as well as should. And this is going to sound silly, but that kind of bummed me out. Discovering I'm depressed kind of bummed me out. So now you're kind of getting into a chicken and an egg thing here. Which came first? Oops. And I just bashed my hand on my mic. That was wonderful. Hopefully you didn't hear that, but if you did, I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah, so I've had to really sit back and think about what depression is. And apparently my dog has a opinion on that. Uh, I'll actually touch on that a little bit before he has a little spasm here. So, be right back. All right. Well, the dog has been handled. Um, in other words, he was just given some love. He's fine. Anyway, moving on. I have to ask myself, what is depression? When I say I am depressed, what does that mean? I think it just means that my appetite for doing things has been curtailed or, in some cases, completely surrendered. But one of the most important things with respect to depression, and I'm lucky I realized this from the outset, it's not a destination, it's a process. And I have that perspective, thankfully, from my heavy introspective time, especially looking into Stoicism, which has helped me dramatically. A lot of the population thinks that Stoics are unemotional, and I don't know what another word is to describe them. Unemotional. They don't show emotion, they don't experience emotion, which is totally incorrect. Stoics absolutely experience emotion, and they accept it for what it is. The biggest key with emotion to a Stoic is that it is something you don't fight with. It's not something necessarily to overcome. It is a feeling that is natural, and there's very little that you can do about that particular initial feeling. The best thing to do, rather, is to let those feelings wash over you. Let them happen. because they're probably happening for good reason. And the thing that matters more than anything is how you handle that depression. It is not a destination, it is a way to get to a destination. Probably not the one you chose. Your your route has been adjusted, perhaps, because now you have to deal with this. But depression, by no means, should ever be the destination. And that's it. You're depressed. Bam. Stoics believe, this is my understanding at least, believe that you have got to let those emotions wash over you and you have to let them happen. The worst way to handle an emotion is to disallow it, because then it's going to be pushed down deep inside and come out at a really bad moment, like when you're at dinner with your in-laws or at a baseball game and you got arrested, or something bad happens. Don't push your emotions down in a way, because then they pop up at strange points without much control and cause far more damage to your life than they would have if you had just dealt with that emotion as it came into your mind. And as you go deeper into that philosophy, you realize that happiness is something that is more and more dissected away from events in life themselves. So if you're depressed and you're not happy, one, if it's being caused by something external, that's fine. That's normal. But it's up to you for where you wish to take it from there. Marcus Aurelius, as I often quote, said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." So, not the money in your account, not the quad shot Americano in your hand, not the house you live in. All of these things help, certainly. I own a lot of things that do give me pleasure. I mean, they make me happy. Why wouldn't I? I've put money down on things that I enjoy. But happiness itself, at the end of the day, comes from the quality of my thoughts. What if everything I own burned down? Would I be depressed forever then until all that was regained? What if things that were lost are completely unattainable, which would be true? I have many things that are sentimental and are priceless to me. If I lost that, would that make me depressed forever? I sure hope not. It would suck. Might ruin my weekend a little bit, but I am the one who's responsible to have the quality of thought and the quality of personality and core deep inside to let that sadness flow through me and manage my emotions in a way so as to not crush them, but to live happily with them. And if you don't do that, if you don't find a way to happily live with the bad parts of your life, you're either going to be one, always miserable, or two, just manic, depressive, off the wall, just happy and sad, totally at the whims of the wind of what's happening in your life. And who wants that? So it's really the quality of your thoughts and how you handle those events, no matter how traumatic. That matters. Marcus Aurelius has also said in other quotes, I'll paraphrase kind of a jumble of them here, but through various things he wrote, he firmly believed that if things are outside of your control, for example, someone else's action, why would you let that impact you so severely? Or, in fact, why would you let that impact you at all? If it's something that is completely out of your control, there is no reason whatsoever for you to be upset about it. It might make some things unfortunate, it might make things uncomfortable, it might make things difficult, absolutely. But you should never be trapped into misery. The only thing you do have control over is your mind and your thoughts. And so that is where you need to focus your powers and your ability to gain and to preserve your own happiness, even in the face of great despair and even calamity itself. So, how does that work with depression? I'll try to explore that here next. So let me use myself as the best example. And I mean that because I know what I'm feeling, I know what I'm going through, so I can really only use myself as a good example of feelings depression and what this means. Anyone else's answer might and should actually be different. It could be very different, but I can't answer that for them because I am not them. But in my case, having all those things that I mentioned earlier taken away from me, so to speak, that is really sad. That's a big bummer. And I do feel depressed because of that. There's only so much you can do at home for months and years on end. But I brought this up with, I think it was my social worker at one point. I hate to talk about her again, but I thought about it and I asked myself, is there something else I can be doing or thinking, considering the state of things as they are now? The answer I came to was, for the most part, no. I could do and focus on those things that still do make me happy. Being robbed of many, almost all of the things that once made me happy does not mean I'm incapable of happiness anymore. It means I just have to find happiness in other ways and to explore that. And frankly, I do. I took that further. Am I certain? This is me asking myself this question. Am I certain that I have done everything I can do to stabilize my mind so I'm not miserable? And have I done things enough to at least allow happiness to still be in my life with all of those other losses come and gone? This goes back to something I learned from my niece's CrossFit program, believe it or not. They have not a slogan, they have a mantra or an idiom perhaps, where they say LND, and it's like printed out all over a CrossFit place. If anyone does CrossFit, they'll know what LND is. What that stands for is leave no doubt. Do your best. Leave no doubt in your mind that you did your best. You put forth your best effort to succeed. If you try to do something and when that comes and goes and passes, if you have any doubt that maybe you could have done a little bit more, that is what's going to lead you to an empty feeling and a sad feeling far more than any external event, even. But if you say to yourself, yes, I do not doubt that I did everything I could within my power to be happy in spite of these events. I've lost some and won some, but I've done what I can. Then there, if that is my answer, I immediately get a jolt of happiness, knowing just that I did my best. That I used those things under my control, my mind, any of my resources, my thoughts, my experiences, those things that make me me, either in a palatial penthouse or on a desert island. I use those elements that make me me to pursue happiness regardless of whatever situation I'm in. If I can say, yes, I did that, even if I failed, I still can pull some joy out of that because I know I did do my best. If I leave any doubt, that's oh, that's not good. That would be far more scary to me. So I go back to that. My niece's CrossFit program to make sure I leave no doubt that I've done everything I can despite my physical limitations now and despite my losses as I go through this process. I've done everything I can to find happiness, to help others when I can, to experience a good life. And just knowing that, even if I fail, knowing that I tried my best, gives me some happiness within me that cannot be taken away. And that's sort of where I'm at now. Yes, I've been depressed, but I do things every day to try to deal with it, and I do make efforts using my mind, my thoughts, my abilities, those things that are me and make me me to overcome these calamities. And I'm absolutely fail sometimes. But knowing I've done everything I can gives me at the very end of the day joy. And frankly, it bucks me up quite a bit. where does this leave me? It's obviously okay to be depressed. That I've established. Don't fight the emotion. Let it overflow you. Let it sink in. Feel those emotions. I've done that. Make sure I do everything I can to hold on to happiness and know deep in my heart of hearts that I'm doing everything I can to keep a good, rewarding life to some extent. And I do believe I've done that. There have been times, a few days here and there, just to be honest, I would say I failed to do that, and that makes me sad. But that just underscores how much control I truly have, and we all have, over our feelings and our emotions. It's completely asinine to base any of my feelings on things that are external to me. I mean, let me rephrase that. Things that are external to me sure can make me sad, but they're not going to make me depressed. Certainly no self loathing of any kind. That would be ridiculous. It's a better way to put it. If I know I'm doing the best effort I can, and even sometimes failing, but still doing my best, using the resources I have of my mind, my spirit, my friends, my loved ones, if I'm trying my best to overcome and deal with those issues, just knowing that alone, that I'm doing that, gives me joy. Maybe that won't give you joy. Hopefully it will. But even if it doesn't, it should make you more aware, I would think. And hopefully that awareness will lead to more successes in life and in gaining that happiness, despite whatever calamity happens outside and beyond us and our minds and our lives. It is not things that upset us, but our judgment about things. As Epictetus once said. And with that, folks, I think I'm going to wind this week's podcast down. I think I've gone on long enough. My final conclusion, though, to what is depression and how does one overcome it, is depression is not a destination. It is not a finality. It is perhaps part of a process, but one that you may still come out as an even better person by using those tools that you do have, such as your mind, to try and overcome whatever trauma or problem visits you upon your life. And we all know they will. You can stand perfectly still and not do anything, and somehow trouble will find you. What matters is how you handle that trouble. Because that's the only thing you can control. It would be asinine to be down on you because of something that someone else did or said. That just doesn't even make sense. It makes sense to be hard on yourself, maybe, because you know you didn't do your best, like I said with CrossFit. That's why in your day to day life, you make sure you do your best, you give it your most. And if you accidentally or fail otherwise to do that, let you learn from that yet still, so that the next time that calamity comes, you know to not repeat that error. And then perhaps come out better off than you were the last time. So, with that and my dog freaking out like mad, I'm going to do a very quick exit with this podcast. Quick exit. Got to go take care of my dog. Thank you all. Take it easy. Auf Wiedersehen.